Welcome to another episode of Tiger Talk. I'm your host, Don Holston, Athletic Director for Armada Area Schools. Today we have a couple of special guests from the varsity basketball program. First, we're going to have on Mike Becker, who is a high school English teacher and our varsity head coach. And then after Mike, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk to Connor Pierson, who is a senior on the varsity basketball team. So thanks for coming, Mike. Appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
Let's talk about. Let's start by going back a little bit, and let's talk about last year's team. We'll look towards the end of the season, and you had some talented kids there. You had a lot of senior leadership, 4-year varsity players. Did that season? I know you guys all set expectations. Do you feel like you guys met those expectations?
Yeah, actually, to an extent, I think we overachieved some of the expectations I had to start. I told a lot of people in the beginning of the season I kind of hoped we'd be somewhere between 8-12 to 12-8, and I knew that would be really some close games. I knew that at a certain extent it depended on, since I was a new coach, when things kind of meshed, when people bought in, and it happened a lot sooner than I even anticipated that everyone kind of bought in. So at one point, about Christmas break, we had a rough game, and then it turned a corner, and then we went on a 13-game win streak and finished 16-5. We lost some steam and finished second in the league, but ultimately, overachieved in the terms of wins, but we also played our best basketball at the end of the season, which is the ultimate kind of goal at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. So obviously didn't end the way we hoped, but it gave a good groundwork for the seasons to come.
Mm-hmm. So, one thing that I was very impressed with last year's team, and one thing that I hope kind of translates into this year's team with that senior leadership you had, was the amount of hustle. We had kids that were going all out all game, and that's sometimes the toughest part of coaching, is to get that effort. I have the torn shorts in my office from Dylan Safransky to prove that he was diving after every ball he could possibly dive after. So those are the types of things from an outsider looking in that you appreciate. And last year was definitely a fun year to watch. As the kids grew and got better as the year went on.
Yeah, and it kind of took until right around Christmas break, and a couple harsh statements maybe for me to really get them to understand what we were going for. But Dylan, returning senior Nolan Petz, those two are the two guys that every practice I could guarantee to be on the floor at some point. When you do it in practice, it carried into the games. And when everyone saw that they were the ones doing it, and in practice we're giving them compliments, it kind of carried into the gameplay. And then once we did that, it shifted some gears for the whole season. And you can see a distinct style of basketball change between December to February. Mm-hmm. And that's a testament to those effort things that they did.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we talked about last year, and we have those returners that are coming back. So why don't you share with us, who are those key returners, and how are they going to fit into what you're trying to accomplish this year?
Yeah, we have some senior returners that are going to hopefully take what we did last year and carry it forward. Connor Pierson is going to kind of play a kind of hybrid position for us as a guard and a forward and a big. He'll be all over the map with that stuff. Nolan Petz is probably one of the most physical kids I've ever coached, and he'll take a lot of hits down low and do a lot of great rebounding, along with Justin Herbert. Just those two together will do a lot of damage in there. Nate Niveson's coming as a guard, and he came last year mid-season and helped us out. And then we have two sophomores that are going to be returning as well that will play some big minutes. That's Connor McKenzie and Josh Bowman, who as freshmen last year held their own really well after a little bit of a learning curve. But by the end of the season, Connor McKenzie played a lot of minutes with those seniors. So hopefully when we add it all together, we'll have a good core group of people that understand what we were doing last year and then apply it to this year.
Awesome. I know you mentioned Connor and Josh. Kind of nice to have the ability to have two bigger guys where you can move them in and out, or in and out of the paint, but in and out of the game as well. Yeah. Without losing anything.
Yeah, and that'll definitely be our kind of our depth at bigs will be something that we will be able to use this year to our benefit. So when we have big guys that have good, strong bodies that can play down low, that'll definitely be a benefit that we have.
Okay. Well, we talked a little bit about personnel. With the personnel that you believe is going to be back and what you're going to have on the team, what's the general game plan going into this season?
Yeah, without giving away too many cards, everyone can kind of joke about that. But I don't want to change too much of our identity from last year. But obviously, with personnel, we'll have to shift a little bit. We had some really athletic guards last year, do a lot of really good things with the basketball. That'll be something we have to kind of get caught up as our guard play. We also will have to kind of mix in athleticism-wise. We take a step back probably after we graduate a few of those guys that are just great athletes. That it's not to say the other guys aren't athletes; they're just different types. And so we'll have to change some of the styles there. We'll still want to run. We'll still play really good man-to-man defense, hopefully, and we'll still kind of have to grind out some games like we did last year.
You know, with you, this will be your second year. Last year was your first year stepping in after Russ Collins had stepped down as the varsity coach. When you look at this year, as you know, relatively new coach. I mean, you've coached for years with us. You've been in the basketball program for 10 years, 9 years. Okay, I was close. So, you know, when you look at the personnel and how difficult is it as a coach to each year you have to kind of change the personnel? How difficult is that in terms of redesigning what you do to fit who you have?
Sure. Yeah, I think, you know, my coaching philosophy ends up being that I've been able to coach other places too, and I've been at big schools and small schools, and I've been able to help on the college level a little bit. And to see an identity is what you're looking for. So you keep your identity, and you do the kind of core things you do, but then you hope to kind of apply different nuances to it to help the personnel. So when you have a really athletic group, you can kind of be a little faster. When you have a really physical group, you can do the same things. You just have to kind of slow the play down so you can take advantage of those things. So our identity, I don't want to see shift too much, but we definitely will have to find the right balance of speed and tempo and physicality and so on down the line. Last year, we were kind of short on the bench. We couldn't be extra physical because we get in foul trouble or we'd be too tired. This year, we have a little more body width that we can do some of those things. We can kind of bang in the paint a little bit more, and that'll help us kind of in the long run. You know, with the physical man-to-man defense we have. So it's ultimately just finding the right nuance of what you do. Is the way I approach it. Okay.
Fair enough. I know that's a tough thing going into each season, trying to evaluate and figure out what's the right road to go that's going to give you the best success. You know? I think last year, you know, stepping in as the first-year varsity coach, you did a great job with that. So let's talk about the BWAC for a little bit. Blue Water Area Conference, generally in basketball, it's generally tough. You know, there's a lot of parity between the teams. Who do you see as being some of the tougher teams in the league this year?
Yeah, and compared to last year had a lot of parity. You know, no one really knew what to expect in terms of, I think last year we ended up having 3 or 4 new coaches. So there's 3 or 4 that are new coaches second-year coaches this year. And then we also have a new team in the league as well. And then we also have a couple coaches that are on their 3rd or 4th year. So when it's all said and done, the longest tenured coach, I think, is Coach Gothier in Imlay. But then beyond that, it's only about 4 or 5 years. So there's still a lot of identities being shaped out. There's a lot of, you know, that parity part plays a huge role. Last year, you know, Richmond put together a great string there in the early time, and we were able to split the series with them. But then it cost us at the end when we, you know, lost some games to Elmont. So I think this year, definitely Richmond, they returned a lot of people. They'll be up there. Almont had a great stretch there at the end. They have some great guard play, and they play such physical defense. And then North Branch, coming into the league, they returned some players from last year, and they had won a district title last year. So they'll definitely be up there. But I can also see Croslex and Yale being tough. Hopefully we can still sneak in there. Coach Gothier at Imlay, there's never a chance to hide away. Algonac has a great physical program from football that they can carry over. So, you know, once again, it's a lot of parity. I wouldn't be shocked to see those kind of top 3 kind of hold their own. But, you know, Croslex and Yale last year, they have a lot of returners, and they snuck a lot of games out at the end that were really tight. So it's going to be an interesting season when it's all said and done. You know, it's one of those things that I think will separate 1 or 2 games will be kind of the league title, I think, will separate teams. I don't think anyone's running away with it this year.
Where do you see your team fitting in?
You know, I hope to say we'll be able to sneak some of those games out and be there. But just like last year, you know, it's hard for me to judge necessarily that until we see our personnel. We definitely will have some weaker spots in the guard play that we didn't have last year. And in a league that's physical and a lot of parity, you want guys that can control the tempo in the guard play. So that's going to be the kind of the concern that will, depending on how fast we grow there or don't, will be our kind of wild card. I hope to say they'll be in the upper middle tier to be there. If we can sneak a few games out here and there, we definitely can compete up top.
Right. Good. That's good to hear. I think I would agree with you. You know, knowing what you have coming back from last year, the type of experience that they had, the leadership that they had last year, I think that's all going to play into where we actually fit in within the league. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about, you get through the season, we get into March. When all is said and done, what to you as a coach, what do you consider a successful season?
It's kind of cliche because there's a lot of coaches. Some coaches will know every single stat they've kept, and I'm probably one of the coaches that I can't remember. It took me a while to even think about what our final record was last year. And when it's all said and done, I don't necessarily always remember where we're at in the standings. I don't necessarily. That's how I've always been. What I always do think is, are we playing better in February and March than we were in November? That'll be the first step, and that's always where I'll judge myself. Is are we playing better than we were at the end? Ultimately, I hope that we're able to have our best play is coming up to March when we hit the district tournament, and I hope we've grew in terms of like getting tough games, playing tough defense, finding our identity earlier to get there. In terms of win-loss, I really couldn't even guarantee that thing. I couldn't put a number on there. But I just hope that we're playing better. That's where the test of where my measurement will be of success.
Awesome. So with tryouts coming up on Monday, November 6th, right?
Yep.
So 5th. Okay, Monday, November 5th. You got your work cut out for you, and hopefully you got everything set and you're ready to go. I know that you're very good at preparing and having things ready. But before we let you go, before we take a break and bring Connor in, I think it's worth noting that we offer congratulations to you. We hear you're going to be a new dad soon.
Yep, we've timed it perfectly, so it's dead center of the basketball season, so I'll just add an extra layer of stress. But we're very blessed and excited, and it's just going to be one of those things that in the scheme of life, it's just, I tell the kids this all the time, life is way more important than basketball. So it'll be a good lesson hopefully for them too, to see where we put our priorities in life and family and everything else down the line. So thank you.
No, it's good stuff. Yeah, you're welcome. And I know your wife Anna, she's great, and I know she's a very big supporter of you and the things.
She already has basketball onesies made up for when the baby comes, so it'll be fashionable on the sideline at some point.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you joining us
Thank you.
And giving us the insight to what we might see this year in terms of the boys basketball team. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to bring Connor Pierson in, a varsity basketball player, and we're going to ask him a few questions on what he sees coming up this basketball season.
People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end. People, let me tell you about him. He's so much fun, whether we're talking man to man.
You don't need to be bigger than life to be a good dad. You just need to spend time with your kids. It takes a man to be a dad.
Welcome back to Tiger Talk. I'm your host, Don Holston, Athletic Director for Armada Area Schools. So joining me now, after Coach Becker had taken some time to give us some insight in the season, is Connor Pierson. Connor Pierson's a varsity basketball player in Armada. So welcome, Connor. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So tell us, how excited are you? Basketball season starts Monday.
I'm pretty excited. We've got a lot of good things we're looking forward to.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. With it starting on Monday, do you feel like you're ready to go for tryouts?
I feel like I'm ready. I feel like everyone else is ready too.
Yeah. I noticed it's definitely worth noting. We had volleyball districts here, and yesterday I'm cleaning up at 9 o'clock at night, and I hear a ball bouncing, and I go into the auxiliary gym, and you're in there shooting, taking shots. And unfortunately I was leaving, so I had to kick you out. But I applaud you for coming in and getting some shots up. So
Yeah, thank you.
So let's talk about the team. Okay, we're going into this season where last year was relatively successful. You had some good senior leadership there. Where do you see the strengths in this year's team?
I feel like our attitude and our hustle will be a big key contender for this year, because it transfers like off the court to on the court real quick. Just like simple things like getting rebounds, hustling down the court, making fast break buckets. And I think our defense is going to be really big too, because last year was pretty big, and I feel like Coach Becker puts that into our mind that defense is key. And I feel like that'll be our key.
Okay. So do you see, you mentioned defense being a strength. Do you feel like man-to-man or zone? Which one do you think is going to be a stronger defense for you?
I feel like man-to-man. I feel like everyone is individually well at defense, and I feel like that will be helpful and help us the most.
Okay, awesome. Let's talk about weaknesses. Where do you see, obviously you don't have to get specific with me, but I'm interested to know, looking at last year, what are some things coming out of the gate that you feel like are things your team needs to work on?
I feel like we need to work on our cohesiveness, like working together as a team on offense and defense too. But and team chemistry is a big thing because you need team chemistry to be successful in any sport. And we need to work on like the simple stuff like as pick and rolls and like flex cuts and stuff like that.
So you mentioned team chemistry. What do you think? What creates a strong team chemistry?
I think having bonds, like just getting to know each other outside the basketball court and outside the gym, and I feel like everyone already kind of knows each other, so I feel like it's not going to be a problem this year.
Good. Okay. So, what do you see as when you look at the season coming up? What do you see? Do you see any surprises? Do you see anything that that might turn out to be better than what you're expecting?
Yes. This summer's been, I know a lot of guys have been working a lot this summer. I feel like there are going to be big surprises, not to me, because I know they've been working, and not to me, but I know there are going to be surprises, and that's going to help us a lot.
I asked Coach Becker about the league, okay, all the other teams in the league. You were there. You saw last year. You played against all those teams. Who do you think is going to be your toughest competition this year in the league?
I think either Richmond or North Branch too. I think North Branch is coming in the league. They want to make a statement, and I feel like they're going to be a tough one.
No, I think that's a great point. With North Branch being new in the league, I think in all the sports you're going to see them want to push hard, to try and make, like you said, make that statement. We're here and we're going to play, right? So, let's talk about success. How would you define a successful season? When we get to March and, hopefully we go deep into the playoffs, we get through districts, win a district, get in the regionals and, hopefully beyond that. But when all is said and done, what do you see as a successful season?
I think above 500 would be pretty successful, and like being in the middle and the top tier of the rankings in the league, and just improving and going deep in March. I feel like that'd be our motto.
Well, that's a good goal to have. I mean, that's what you should be having as a goal. It's good. So you talk about getting in and playing better and doing well as the season goes on and playing your best basketball towards the end of the season. Do you agree with Coach Becker that that's where you guys were at last year at the end of the season? Yeah,
I feel like we really pushed ourselves. Like, I think Christmas break was our turning point to the last year's season, because a couple of practices were a little tough. And, yeah, I feel like that pushed our minds to do well, and like we can hustle. That's where the hustle comes from, and we turned the corner and we came running.
So one last question for you: how important is senior leadership?
Senior leadership is big because that's what people look up to. And if the senior's not pushing it, then they're not going to push it. And if they are pushing it, then they're going to follow. So
if what I'm hearing here is the best way to show senior leadership is by example.
Yes.
Is that fair to say? And give me an example of what you can do as a senior. What's something you can do that's going to show these underclassmen that, what you're doing is what everybody should be doing?
I think like diving on the floor, like Nolan Petz shows a great example of being a leader. He dives on the floor every time. He leads by example, and that's what you want to be as a team.
Get that instilled in all the younger kids.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Connor, I appreciate you coming on. I know sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking, but you did a great job, and I appreciate you being here. It's always nice to get an insight from somebody who's actually out on the court, in the trenches, so to speak, and playing the game. I'll be honest with you, I'm excited for this year, for the basketball season to start, because I think again, like last year, we'll have an enjoyable season. We'll have a lot of entertaining basketball on the floor this year. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So if you want to catch the varsity basketball team, their opening game is on Thursday, November 29th. It is at Mount Clemens, and the JV will play at 6, and the varsity will play at 7:30. So always remember, folks, you can find us online at armadaathletics.org. You can also follow us on Twitter at Armada Athletic. So I want to thank you for joining us, and as always, Tiger up.